Hello and welcome to the White Collar Fitness Radio, the ultimate podcast for professionals striving to achieve optimal performance in today's fast-paced age. I'm your host, Bruno Dalladoni, online body transformation specialist and founder of the Health Coach Fitness. I'm here to help you optimize your health and fitness, even if you're short on time. Welcome to today's episode of the White Collar Fitness Radio, guys. Today, we are discussing setting achievable goals and how to attain them. So it's part of, I suppose it's just emphasizing a little bit of what we spoke about last time, is developing it a little bit more, is going into some more depth about how to set some goals properly this new year. So the first thing for us to pay attention to or get an understanding of is that about 70% of all your daily activity, everything you do throughout the day, is habitual. So you do it because you always do it, whether that is subconsciously, as in when you wake up in the morning, you get out of bed with the same leg every time, or whether that is something that you think about, but you do anyway, because it's part of your daily habit. For example, having a shower. Hopefully you have a shower every day. Anyway, so if we have an understanding that about 70% of the stuff is habitual, is daily, you do it all the time, then you can understand why, when I say that, putting some habits in place that will lead you to your goal that you've set makes sense, right? So if almost 3/4 of everything you do because you always do, hopefully that sentence makes sense, then you can understand why actually having some new habits that will allow you to get to those goals will make your life a little bit easier. And then once you get on board with that idea that you need some new habits, you then have to decide whether they are goal-based habits or identity-based habits, So the difference being, let's take running as an example. So say, for example, you decided that you want to add some running into your schedule this year, and then you have two reasons why that might be, right? The first reason, you might just want to do some running because you want to become a runner. You weren't before, but you quite like the idea of running as a mode of exercise, and you think that adding some running into your daily schedule will be beneficial to you long term, so you want to become a runner. That's very clearly an identity-based habit. You run because you are a runner. The other one is a goal-based habit. So you want to run because you decided to sign up for a race. You've got, the London Marathon later on this year, so you need to do some running. You can see how the approach you might take to those is different. Therefore, the weight, I suppose, the importance of the habit might change. Not even the importance, that might be wrong, but the gravitas of that goal might change. Because if it's something that if you are a runner, well, if you miss a run because of bad weather, that's one thing. But there's a likelihood that you probably wouldn't miss a run because of bad weather, because you just run habitually anyway and you enjoy it. Whereas if you've developed that habit for that race, you kind of don't really have a choice. You have to go and run, because if you start missing out on training runs, the race is going to be pants and you're going to kick yourself for it. So you can start to see how there is a bit of a difference on the approach you take, even from you can almost think of it, the approach you take on a subconscious emotional level will be different to an identity-based goal, an identity-based habit or a goal-based habit. Hopefully you can see that makes some sense. Okay, so you're going to do the thing, you've written down your goals as your goal setting. And if you listen to the last podcast I put out, then maybe you've written out in the form of a SMART goal. Now what I want you to do is to go there and literally just label it, whether it's identity or goal-based habits that you're going to need to achieve them. Okay. Now, turns out that just wanting it isn't quite enough. So what happens usually is that you get this thing called limbic friction. And limbic friction really is going to dictate two things. One, how much of a pain in the backside it is for you to perform the habit. And two, how long it's going to take for that habit to really ingrain, right? For it to stop being a pain in the backside and for it to just kind of flow. So limbic friction, when we say limbic friction, what we're really talking about is how much, and I'm going to say the words, and I'm quoting Dr. Andrew Huberman, but what he says is that limbic friction is the amount of activation energy it takes for you to do something. So the way to think about it is you're going for your run, but it's raining and you don't want to go. So you sit there staring at your running shoes, and it's that debate, do I go, do I not go? That is that limbic friction. That is the, right, let's do this thing. And friction, you can think of friction as you would think of friction. If you're trying to push a box along the floor is resisting, there's friction. Well, it's kind of the same. If you're trying to do something, but your brain is telling you just can't be bothered, and you're having to physically really talk yourself into doing something, that is that friction we're talking about. And so the more friction there is, the harder it obviously is going to be for you to perform that habit. And it will also dictate, so the amount of limbic friction you experience to perform the habit over time will also dictate how long the habit takes to form as a habit, as something you just do. And there is no easy answer. So what I mean by that is that the research seems to show that it can take anywhere between 30-something days all the way through to over 260 days to make an activity, turn an activity into a habit. So hopefully you can see why having a bit of a working understanding of limbic friction is also important. Okay, so what can you do about it? An easy way for you to reduce the limbic friction you experience is by taking a bit of time, it doesn't have to be long, a minute or so, and visualizing all the steps needed for you to perform the habit. So if we're taking a run, for example, all the steps that you're going to need to perform to go to that run. For example, you're going to need to get home from work, get changed, sit on the sofa, put your running shoes on, go out of the door, go for the run, come back, towel off your head because it's raining outside, more than likely, it's the UK, taking your shoes off, so on and so forth. And it's really important that you go through the motions step by step in your head all the way to the full completion of that habit, as in you've stripped down, you're in the shower because, well, you sweated during a run. Therefore, the end of the habit would be going into the shower, for example. So hopefully that makes some sense. Now, this sounds just a bit EBGB, woo-woo astrology, but stick with me because what this relates to is something called procedural memory. And what procedural memory is almost your brain mapping out the steps it needs to take to perform a thing, to perform, in this case, a habit. In this habit, go running. So procedural memory. So every time you perform that habit, your brain, something changes in your brain that makes it easier for you to perform the habit next time. Some of you may have heard the saying, neurons that fire together, wire together. That is in fact a thing. So the more firings of the same neuron pattern that happens, the stronger those links become, making it easier for you to do it next time. Hopefully that makes some sense. Now, your brain is not stupid. Visualizing, it knows that visualizing isn't in fact doing the real thing. But what you do by visualizing is you start creating those connections that you're going to need to then do the habit. So you instantly reduces the amount of limbic friction there. That's why it's really important for us to think about every single step in order as you would do to go running or to perform whatever habit it is that you're trying to ingrain. Hopefully that all makes sense. And then the other thing that might help ease some of that limbic friction is thinking about the timing of the day you're going to perform the habit. Obviously, I understand that it doesn't always work in the most optimal way. We're all busy. Some people might have children. I'm sure some of you do have children. So understand that obviously it doesn't always work out how we want it to, but I'm just giving you guys the almost things for you to consider. And if you can apply them, apply them. If you can't apply them, then and you're not sure, you still want to do the stuff, but you're not sure how you can potentially navigate it, just reach out. I'm happy to help wherever I can. So the thing about timings is this. You can almost break your day down into 3 parts, right? So critical timing 1, critical timing 2, critical timing 3. Brilliant. Or critical phase, if you prefer. So phase 1 would be from when you wake up, those first 8 hours you're awake. Phase 2 would be around, these are all obviously approximations of time, but from hour 9 through to hour 16 or so. And then phase 3 is hour 16 through to hour 24 of a day. So phase 3 is really when you are sleeping, there or thereabouts. So if we understand those 3 phases, then phase 1, as you wake up, the processes that are happening to get you going in the morning, to get you awake and moving and performing, will lend themselves to you performing more active-based habits. So if you're trying to exercise more efficiently, harder, try a different mode of exercise, the morning will make your life easier. If the goal you've set yourself is to do some cold showers or ice baths, in the morning, that'll make it easier. If you're trying to do something that's calmer, more relaxing, maybe you're trying to introduce some yoga to your routine, or some meditation or some breath work, or maybe you just want to go for a calm walk once a day, then doing those things in the afternoon, maybe early evening, will be a little bit easier. And it's to do with things that we'll discuss in a different podcast, but it's to do with the processes happening within the body at those different times. So think about it in the sense of, if it's something that's more active, takes a bit more adrenaline, you need to get pumped up, psyched up for, like for example, an ice bath, there's a high likelihood, there's a bigger chance that you perform better, or that'll be easier to perform in the morning than in the evening or the afternoon. If it's something that's calmer, more relaxing, a little bit slower paced, then performing that later on in the day will probably be a little bit easier. So there you have it, guys. These are some of the things for you to consider when you're setting the goals. Now, if you want to know how to set up, how to write out your goals, go back just one episode for the New Year episode, where I've basically gone through how to clearly define a goal and all the other things that you need to take into consideration, like thinking obstacles and planning to overcome those too. If you understand that you need to have some new habits to achieve your goals, and you have a working understanding of the things that will get in the way on a I suppose on a physiological level, so not external factors. You have to travel for work, for example, but internal factors. So that self-talk you have with yourself about whether you do in fact want to go running or should you just sit on the couch and watch Netflix. If you have an understanding of what's going on there, it doesn't have to be particularly in depth, but just you know that it's part of the process, then normally you tend to find that just makes life a little bit easier for you to get over that hump and actually do what you need to do. If you found this helpful, guys, as always, let me know. Rate the podcast 5 stars, please, on Spotify and Apple and wherever else you get your podcast. Share it with your friends. Share it on social media. Let's try to make the podcast the next big thing, and let's break the internet. I'll catch you next time.